Welcome to Community with Closers. I'm your host, Pat Clark, and this is where closers are born. Get ready for high-energy stories, game-changing strategies, and the relentless pursuit of success. In each episode, we dissect the art of sealing the deal, celebrate triumphs, and explore the grit that defines salesmanship. This is the ultimate podcast for sales warriors ready to conquer the business battlefield. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Community with Closers. If you are ready to dominate the sales field, we have a guest for you tonight. But we're super excited you're here tonight. We got a lot going on here. We just brought on a new team member for the podcast. So he's going to be doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff, bringing you short clips over there at YouTube, and also doing all the stuff on Spotify. So wherever you like your podcast, check it out, Community with Closers. But without further ado, I want to introduce you guys Ed Marchiselli, as you guys know it himself. What is up, brother?
Hey, Pat. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. I'm super excited to have you on tonight. You know, I know we were talking about this earlier, and shoot, we were going to have you at Sales Booth speaking there, which we still got to get you with JC, get you over there for sure.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah, man. Well, let's dive into it, brother. I want to kind of hear a little bit about your story. I don't think I've heard bits and pieces, but you know, how did this whole thing start with the seal and like how you got into that? Because that's how I've met you. Shoot, I mean, 10 plus years ago.
Yes. So, you know, I've been in sales my entire life, and in some really challenging situations, you know, I sold photocopiers for a company that we didn't manufacture our own equipment. We competed against the people that manufactured our equipment, but we were like $2,000 more. So we had to find ways to really differentiate ourselves because we were selling the same equipment. I got into high tech for a long time, and even selling software, you had to find the differences between your software and your competitors. And I worked for Microsoft for a while, and I just got tired of the big company. You know, I couldn't go to work one more day in that environment. I hated it. And so I wanted to get back to Florida. My parents were aging and nieces and nephews were getting older. And I thought, you know, air conditioning in Florida, what better business to be in, right? So I got into the air conditioning business in Florida. And boy, you know, try selling air conditioning when you're like one of 20 carrier dealers in your market, right?
Yeah.
So you're selling the exact same equipment. So why not just go with the cheapest one? It's the same equipment. So I really had to, you know, hone those skills and learn how to differentiate ourselves. Couldn't sell on equipment. You know, we had to sell on everything but equipment. So I was always looking for ways to differentiate us. And we background checked every employee that we hired. And we had our own badge printer at the time. We had 165 employees when I sold the company. And we had our own badge printer. We background checked everybody. And we interviewed a guy from our biggest competitor we were going to hire him, but he had 2 burglary convictions, credit card fraud, and defrauding the elderly. And he worked for our biggest competitor, and they claimed to background check everybody. And 3 weeks later, we interviewed somebody from our biggest plumbing competitor, and he had a rape conviction and a burglary conviction, and he was working for home services. And so at my next sales meeting, I was telling my sales team, I said, guys, this is a differentiator for us because we're always talking about differentiators, you know? And so I said, we actually background check our guys, and we actually don't hire the guys that have, you know, bad stuff in their backgrounds. And one of the sales guys that worked for me, he said, I talk about that on every sales call. He said, but I'm a salesperson, so they either take it with a grain of salt and don't believe me, or they just believe everybody, you know, and our competitors say they do it, whether they do or not.
Yeah.
And that's when the light bulb went on. And I said, I need something like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, but for my people, because my people were the differentiator. We're selling the same equipment as a bunch of different companies. So that's when I said, I need a third party to validate that, yes, we did these background checks, we did them right, and the people don't have these like really nasty, violent or theft-related crimes, you know, in their recent history. So that was how the seal was born. And I sold that company 16 years ago. and launched the seal. And we actually, it was about a year in development, and we launched in June of '09, which was the official bottom of the Great Recession, which was a fun time to launch a brand new company.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's incredible, man. So, diving into that is like, cause I use the seal, right? And it was like a game changer when I was selling and I had my badge and we were sending, Audrey would be sending out the seal mail, right? And that is huge, especially, and I want to talk about it a little bit today, like in this market, right? What are you seeing with companies that are using this and then companies who aren't using this? What does that look like?
When the recession kind of hit while we were in development ready to launch, I was like, oh, great. This is the worst possible time to be launching a new company and a new concept. In hindsight, it was the best possible time because that's when people really needed to work hard and differentiate themselves. 10 years later, when everything was going great, people were booked out 3 weeks. They were having hard time finding people. But when things were tough was when it was the most important, to be able to differentiate yourself and to be able to get more price, because that's when people are tightening their wallets. And if you don't give them a reason to spend a little bit more money or a lot more money with you over your competitors, they're going to go with the cheaper choice if you don't give them some reason to make it other than money. I always like to say it's always about money until you make it about something else. And so in the retrospect, that was a great time to launch the company. We grew and we did well in good times, and everybody does. Yeah. But those tough times are when we really thrived, and actually we're starting to see that again. I mean, it's tough out there.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm really excited to get into sales and closing and everything that you talk about. I think is so important to your audience, and I can't wait to talk about it. But now is the time. You can't sit back. You have to sell. You have to learn to. If you can't sell, you got to learn to sell. If you can't learn to sell, you got to hire somebody that can sell.
Yes, and that's exactly it. Is like hiring and replicating you, because if you're on the truck or like I was wearing all the hats, right? And I was doing sales after the jobs, and or I was watching the guys, I was checking up on it. And it's a lot to actually fulfill the whole sales role to really, produce for that truck.
Yes.
I would say too, when you hit the nail on the head, it was like when everybody's getting into the business. So like when, because we started in, 2007 and then 8 hit and everybody was getting into the pressure washing industry, right? It's an easy, low barrier to entry industry, if you will. And so everybody was putting things on mailboxes. They were putting my flyers in the mailboxes so that the postmaster was calling me.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And it was like, because we were advertising, right? And it was like whoever advertised the most, got the deal or got the bid. And so we were really raising, the bar on marketing in our area, because we were putting out 40,000 clip flyers. We were putting out, 500 yard signs and more. And so we just kept kind of raising it up. But the seal really helped because that was exactly it. Like we're all trying to find differentiators that will position us to be that white glove clean, the best, you know what I mean? Like the meat and potatoes. And so I love what you did too. And I want to talk about this a little bit because you incorporated Google in Ask the Seal. And that was phenomenal because if somebody gave a 5-star review and talk about that, what did that look like?
Yeah, so actually it was a client's idea several years ago. Like I'm talking like 7, 8 years ago. And he said, hey, we're sending the badges to the customer, the people coming. And so you guys already know, who's going and the customer's email address and that. And he said, why can't you help me get reviews on Google? Because that's my number one problem. Yeah. And I said, I don't see why we couldn't. And I looked at reputation management and what was out there, and they call it reputation management. Every single one of those tools starts after the job is done. And all they do is help route the person to leave a review somewhere. They ask them for a star rating and they help route them somewhere. That's not reputation management. That's review request or review routing. Reputation management starts when they go to your website. Is it informative? Does it look clean and good? When you answer the phone, does somebody answer the phone? That's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. If I need service, especially today, so many people don't call back. I have to assume if they don't answer their phone, they're not going to call me back. They might call me back in 2 hours. That's great. But I can't assume that they are. So I keep going until somebody answers the phone, and I'm busy.
Yes.
And if they do things right, I'm just going with them. I just had my dryer vent cleaned a couple weeks ago, and somebody called me back, and I said, I've already had it done. And it was the same day. I called, somebody came out and did it the same day. So, wow. And they called me back after it was done. So, and it wasn't about price. I wanted it done.
That's right.
So that's real important. And and then it starts by who's coming to my house, and do I feel comfortable, and do I build a relationship with them? So, we've been sending the badge and the bio for years. Now you can actually record a video bio. So Mrs. Jones, so there's a lot of anxiety, especially when, over 80% of the buyers for home services are women. Yeah. And they're also the ones that are home when the service people are on the property. And so she has anxiety about who's coming to the house. And some men understand it, some don't. They just don't, they think customers only care about price, or they care about this or that, but they don't understand that anxiety. So seeing not only the face of the person coming, but the fact that they've passed a background check and that they're going to be badged, and then to see a video bio and hear them speak, and to not only hear about their training, but maybe something personal, what church they go to, or what they coach their kids' soccer team, or they like fishing on the weekends. It makes them a person. And what happens is, more often than not, those people will open the door and they'll say, where do I know you from? Like, even though they haven't met them, and they know they saw the video and everything, in the back of their mind, they feel like they have this familiarity. So that's where you build the relationships. And then we leverage that relationship into Google reviews and Facebook reviews. And we've been doing the emails and texts forever, and integrated with the CRM, so it's effortless. But just this past November, we started putting it on the back of the ID cards. Nice. And there's people that will print, business cards up with the link to their Google profile. So you hand it to the customer and you say, would you mind doing a review? What do they say? Yeah, sure, I'll do that for you later. Right? Yeah. So, and then you leave, and they're never happier than when you've just completed that job. But you leave, their phone rings, they got to go pick the kids up at soccer. There's just 100 different things happening, and they have the best intentions, but they don't do it. So now what our clients are doing is, it's on the back of the badge. So they ask Mrs. Jones, did I do everything you were expecting today? Did I provide 5-star service? Yes, you did. Mrs. Jones, would you mind just taking 2 minutes to leave me a review, preferably on Google, just so my boss knows I did a good job? Yeah. And so she, of course, says yes. They take the badge off and they hand it to her. What that does is, she has one of two things to do. She can say, "No, I don't think so," and hand it back. That's kind of rude, people will do it. But it's the person's badge; they have to leave with it. So they need to do the review right now, So we have clients that have been using that. We just rolled it out in November. That are, some of the small guys are at 100% conversion rate. And anyone using it is at like a 90+% conversion rate to reviews on Google. It's phenomenal.
That's huge. Yeah. So we took it a little bit further, and we created motion too, because like sometimes you're like, hey, can you leave a review? And if you don't say it with empathy, and so we have the company dog. And so we're like, if you leave ma'am, if you leave a review today with my name in it, not only does my boss know that I did a fantastic job today, but our company dog, Otis, gets a treat. And then you pop up a picture of Otis on your phone. And so they're like, oh, yeah, of course, right?
That's awesome.
You always, like you're saying, it's right there. It's a system, right, that your technicians can get that review. Same with a salesperson. I don't know if people are doing this, but we try to get 2 reviews. Now, sometimes they'll have to do it on Facebook and Google, because you can't write 2 reviews on Google, but we'll get one for the sales rep and we'll get one for the technician. So you're doubling up on your reviews. So that's another thing that we kind of are doing there. But I love that, man. So, with the seal, and I want to dive into this because I know you're full of sales knowledge. So, we keep these things tight. That way people are driving to the next job, whatever it may be. But let's dive into the sales part of this. So I know you've been in sales, you've done it, you've seen it, you've, worked with companies in sales. So, with this year, we got an election year, right? Things are a little dicey a little bit. You got a lot more, and we're going to speak to the exterior cleaning industry, but I think that's for a lot of industries too, like, tree care. I'm seeing a lot of people getting into the home service space just because it's blowing up, right?
Right.
So we have a lot more competition. And let's touch on that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like on the sales, because we got to differentiate ourselves. We know that. We need to put systems in place because, if you're not, guess what? Your competition is, right? So what are some things that people can leverage this year, maybe to put in place, would you say?
Yeah, I think one of the first mistakes people make is they think they're in the wrong industry. Like, this is too competitive. It's 2024. Anywhere somebody is making money, you're going to have competition, and there's going to be people trying to get in there. And so the grass is not greener. You need to get better at what you do and differentiate yourself and sell against these guys better, because wherever you go, you're going to have competition. What I see, and especially in the exterior cleaning space, is most of the people, the employees certainly, and even the owners to some extent, they haven't made a ton of money in their lives. They're successful, but they're not as successful as their clients. And I always tell people, don't project your financial situation on your customer. If you've never made more than $75,000, you don't feel comfortable asking for a certain, $10,000 for a house cleaning, because you wouldn't pay $10,000 for a house cleaning. But you don't understand how much some of these people make. And I do I think you've probably seen my avoiding the price trap talk, and we go into all the different types of people. How many people make over $100,000 a year? How many make over 200? How many make over 300? And the list of people making over $300,000 a year is huge. And they don't have the biggest houses all the time, but they have tremendous disposable income. So people projecting their financial situation or their history on their buyers is a big mistake.
Yes.
And so, you can't do that. I love what you do, because I've been a salesperson my whole life. You get beat down over time. So you need to, read all the books, all the audio books, attend the sales training. And it's not enough to say, I did that or I read that, because you get beat up over time. So, and the same thing for your salespeople. And you can't forget that. It's easy to say, oh, he was great last year, but what's happened? He's down. Well, he's been beat up in the field. You got to take him out of the field and get him some training and get him right in the head again, because it happens to the best of us. I've been there too, where I'm super successful, but you just have a run of bad customers and bad luck, and you start to get down and you start listening to them and, listening to that little voice in the back of your head. And so the training is so important, and it can be the same training you had last year. You just need to hear it over and over again and keep that. So I think that's something that we can do. The other thing too is, I talk to a lot of people with new businesses, and they're struggling, and time is important. I said it's effort times time. I'm not working as hard as I did when I started the company 16 years ago, but I'm doing so much better because of it's time. It's the time I've been in the market, the time people have seen us, the customers that we have that have referred us and stuff. So, and there's nothing you can do to shortcut that time. You have to put that effort in early on, and there's just no shortcuts. You can try to be the best you can, but there's nothing that substitutes the passage of time. You working hard over a long period of time.
Yes. I always say you gotta put your reps in, right? Because you're not gonna go to the gym and then you're gonna be like, oh crap, in a week. You gotta put the reps in. That's good.
I mean, I thought the seal was going to be an overnight success. I thought it was going to be so much easier than it was, and it was tough. It was 10 times tougher than I ever thought it was. And like I said, I don't work as hard as I did, but it's 10 times easier now because of that time. So I think people give up too early. And then I think, they go out. I have seen, we've been doing this 16 years, and we've been involved with the exterior cleaning business intimately for 15 of those years.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many people, good people, that with the best equipment and the best training, technical training, the best chemicals, and they're better than their competition. And but they can't compete because they don't know how to sell and they don't know how to differentiate. And they say, well, you know, this guy's, you know, the $99 guy or the $200 guy or the $300 guy, and they just never learn their value and to differentiate. And one of the things that always drove me nuts when I was managing a sales team, and I still hate it to this day. I hear it from my clients sometimes, and I hear it from my clients' employees sometimes. I overhear it, and they'll say, that guy had, you know, $500,000 house, and he had a Mercedes in the driveway, and he was the cheapest SOB there was. And I always tell them, I say, that person spent a lot of money on their house. They spent a lot of money on their Mercedes or whatever they're driving. They spent money on their clothes. They're not cheap. They just don't value what you do, or they don't see a difference between you and your competitors. And so they're not going to give you money just because they have money, and you don't get paid just because you're the most expensive. You can't just, you know, and that's the problem that some of these guys that are the best at what they do, they think the customer should know it.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't work as hard. The guys who are cutting corners are selling, and they're outselling the guys who are actually good, because the guys who are good have an attitude, right? And they're like, screw them, you know, I'm the best. They're an idiot if they don't recognize it. No, it's not their fault. It's your fault if you don't make them recognize that.
You didn't educate the customer. That's exactly right. And they're like, well, you know, they don't see it, and then they you know, sidetrack, right? They backpedal and they're like, oh, and they start blaming it on everything else. And sometimes you got to look yourself in the mirror, and that's a hard conversation, right? Is like, would you buy from you? That's the reality. And if you go into a sale just thinking you're the baddest thing in ever, and you can do this and that, you know, that might rub somebody the wrong way. And that's where, you know, we talk about the disc profile, right? Because you can, if you're talking to an S and you're a D, that S is going to say, oh yeah, we'll definitely do it. We'll call you back in a day or two. Great. I sold that one. Nah, dude. Right?
Yep. You know, I talk a lot about my wife and myself. When I met my wife, it was very interesting she's great. I mean, she's like the nicest person you'll ever meet. She trusts everybody. And I would watch the way she would interact with salespeople and what she did and how she acted, because she was polar opposite of me. I'm skeptical. You have to prove something to me. And I always assumed that she would be the easier person to sell to. And in some respects she is, but not in the way that you want. So what I watched happen was salesman one would come in, and they would tell her, give her sales pitch, and they would leave, and she'd say, I really like that person. I think we should go with them. And I say, okay, well, you know, that's good. We got somebody else coming in tomorrow. Let's see what you think of them. That person would come in the next day, and she'd go, when they leave, I think we should go with him. Everything he said was perfect. Same 1, 2, 3. So we'd sit down at the end of that process, and I'd say, what do you think? And she'd say, I like them all. I think they'll all do a good job. Which one do you think we should go with? She picked the cheapest price because she trusted them all and believed them all. Every one of those salesperson walked out of that sales pitch feeling great. She loved me. She bought everything I was selling. She trusts me and everything else. She was going to the cheapest one. She makes fun of me because of what I spend on things, because I will go, if somebody, I'm the opposite. I'm skeptical. So, and now that I've learned this, I would rather sell to a skeptical person, because I'm always going to do my job. I'm never going to listen to them when they say, I'm getting 3 bids and I'm going with the cheapest price. Because even I say that, because you don't want to pay more than you have to. And you don't want to tell people, yeah, I'm going with the highest price. So a skeptical person, you have to earn the business from them. And if you do it, like literally, if the first person through the door earns my trust, I'll just give them my business. I'm a busy person. I don't care. You know, my time is money. So, I know that I'm a difficult person to please and to sell to. So I don't care. I'll pay them whatever they charge if they earn my trust, because they earned it.
Yeah.
And most salespeople would prefer to sell to her than me, because I'm going to ask all the tough questions and I'm going to be the jerk, and I'm the one that's going to tell them I'm going with the cheapest. And, just because if I don't tell them that, they may pad it, especially if I have a nice house and a nice car outside. I'm thinking, oh, this guy's going to, charge me more just because I have nice things.
Yep. Yeah. And that's exactly it. And I love selling to, actually, you're right, like the more skeptical person, right? They're calculated. They want to know, they want to earn the business. And that's actually how we tailored our sales system, right? Was for that person. But you still have the one that's bubbly and everything like that. And they don't realize that they have to set the stage for the customer, not only for that one person, but for that spouse as well, because who is the decision maker, right? You got to figure that out. And then there's a lot of things in there. Like we have different close techniques, right? That we use, but it's more of that personal stuff and asking the right questions. So there's a software called Rilla, and Rilla is really amazing. And you can actually track sales reps, sales teams, and find out why people are really winning, right?
Yep.
And the top sales guys, they're asking 40% more questions, right?
Yes.
Whereas the guys that aren't selling are talking 40% more, and it's like, no.
There is a very striking comparison to dating and selling.
Yes.
And if you're doing all the talking, it's not going to go well. You got to ask questions.
That's right. It's so crucial, because you'll see their eyes just gloss over, and then some sales reps don't realize it. And it's cool because I think, like, when I was in it, I didn't know what I was doing, right? Like you get that head trash in there. You're putting your self-limiting beliefs on the customer that they're like, holy crap, will they actually do a $5,000 house wash? Like, you're thinking this in your mind. You're like, that seems a little high, right? And then you start lowering it down or discounting or whatever you do. And that's the wrong way to do it. And so when I started developing sales teams, I started looking from the outside in, and they would be like, Pat, dude, I'm really afraid to present this. It's $6,500. I said, no worries, man. Do some more measurements. I'll be up there, right? And I would stop in at them. And now I would have the confidence and like the discernment, I guess you'd say, right? Like to be able to hear for only $6,500, we're gonna get everything taken care of from the roof down. We're gonna get your rock wall. And they're like, all right, let's do it. Let's do it all. And my sales reps' eyes are just like, holy crap, how did you just do that, right?
Yeah.
But it's another level when you can start teaching what you're preaching. You know what I mean? Like, you do the systems, you get stuck in the weeds, and we've all done it, like you're saying, Ed, because I think that's key too for viewers is like, how are these guys top sales reps, like in the heating and air and like, garage doors and all this thing over and over and over again? Number one is they're investing in themselves, right? To level up their game. So they're always training. They're always on top of, the next thing, because you're going to get beat up and you have to do training.
Absolutely. The other thing, and you mentioned the $6,500 roof wash. The other mistake that I hear a lot is when somebody's struggling and you're with the lower price competitors, I say, well, what's your pricing like? And they're like, I'm a little bit more than my competitors. I'm like 10% more. I said, are you a little bit better than your competitors? No, I'm a lot better than my competitors. I said, well, what you're telling your customers is that you're a little bit better, right?
Oh, it's gold. Yep.
So, I want to be so high that they go, holy crap. Now, you can't just come in high because they have a nice house and nice things. You need to explain to them why you do what you do and do the whole dog and pony show. But I want them saying, what's wrong with that other guy that's half the price? And if you do your job right, they're not saying you're trying to rip me off. They're saying, well, what corners is that guy cutting? To be able to do it for half off. And if you do your job right, that's what they should be asking. Not why are you twice as much? They should be saying, how can that guy possibly do the job for half the price and do it right? And when you get the right customer who wants it done right, they'll be afraid when you come in that high. They start doubting the low end guy. Like, can they actually do the job I want for that?
Yes. Yeah, we literally, this happened, right? This was 5 years ago. We had, I don't know who it was, but they were doing it for half a precision. Whatever our quote was, we'll do it for half. And how many customers call me back? They're like, dude, we got a guy to do it for half, but I'm not going with him. And I'm like, Because it's building the value. When you call into the company, it doesn't start when you do the quote, right? It starts when you call into the company. Who's answering the phone? What is that process like? Are you just like, yeah, it's going to be, let me look you up online. It's going to be this and that. There's no personality, and then it becomes price. And you never want it to be, that. And so you got to build this into your systems. You got to build it into what your company is. And that's an extension of you, right? Of that owner, to have that customer journey.
People buy from people they like and trust, and they're both important. You want them to like you and to trust you. Yep. And we that starts the minute they call, the minute you answer the phone, the minute they go to the website, the minute you show up at their house. We have all of our clients are now getting our front door safety tips. And we put our client's logo on there with our logo. But It explains to the customer, it just gives them no nonsense safety tips. It has nothing to do with them or it does, but it doesn't. It's just general safety tips. And, it just makes you the trusted source. It's like, Mrs. Jones, I know you trust me. We sent you my badge, it's from the background check company. I passed the background check, but we know we're not the only vendor you have out here, and we want to make sure you're safe. So here's these safety tips. And, and it really gets people thinking. What it does is the people that are like me, that are like, okay, I get, these guys get me, I'm skeptical. I'm careful about who's coming to my house. And Robin, my wife, who trusts everyone, looks at it and says, wow, I never thought of that,
Yep.
And we've literally had people say, I don't need to talk to anyone else. Just, I don't want to have anyone else out here. Just do the job.
Yeah. And that's what you want. I mean, those are the people that are loyal too. Like, we found when people started spending more money, and we were like, I'll never forget this, because we had a lady that was doing sales for us, and she was crushing it. I mean, she was selling, $7,000 a day, right? And she would send out every quote she would do, she would send out a thank you letter. And the thank you letter was just like, hey, really appreciate you letting us have the opportunity. If there's anything I can do throughout the process, please feel free to call me, right? Or one guy was like, think of me as your crazy Uncle Joe. Call me with any problem. You know what I mean? And those are the things. You got to be light. But I went to one, he had a Trex deck, and he spent like $60,000 on this Trex deck on the back. It was on the lake. It was super nice. And so he was like, look, I really want the owner to come out. So the office, was like, well, he's pretty busy right now. I was like, no, I happen to be in. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out there. And so I spent a good amount of time with him. And he went through, and he was a business owner too. And I always tell my whole team this story because it really hits home. It's like, when I went in the house, he's like, look, I want you to come in here. I want you to look at this. I know you're a young guy, but I want to show you your level of professionalism and why we're going with you. And right there, I'm like, all right, well, I already know it's sold. Let's go. So I go in, and he literally had 7 pieces of, from a thank you card to the seal letter to the monthly, safety tip to the boom, 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 right? 7 different things. And he was like, from the flyer, right? From the initial contact flyer, he's like, I knew because of the branding, right? We designed our stuff to be that person, right? That educated homeowner. So you got to know who your demographic is, right? You got to know who the person is that has the disposable income. So you're not just blanking it and doing it everywhere, because that will mess up your head too. If you got sales reps going to the wrong house, and you could probably talk on that, that's going to mess you up.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 2 people with the same amount of money can be totally different depending on how they earn it. Anyone who owns a business knows what it takes to run a business. So anybody who owns their own business is your best customer, because I mean, I still explain that to people all the time. They'll complain about the price of something. I'm like, do you know what it costs that person to run that company, and to roll a truck out with the insurance and the health insurance and the part, and they've got an inventory of parts, and and that just all of the expenses, and people that just their whole life have just collected a salary with a big company. They've got money, and some of them are willing to spend it, but some of them they can't comprehend that. And those are the people, those are some of the people that have a lot of money but won't spend it because they just don't have no concept of what it takes to run a business.
That's exactly right. Yeah, some people,
you can educate them.
Yes.
We did, when I was in the AC business, we did a thing called "Why do we charge so much?"
Ooh,
And so we had flat rate pricing, but it was based on an hourly rate. And our technicians thought we were just getting rich off their labor,
mm,
And so we did this little study with them. We said, okay, we're paying you for 40 hours a week, basically. And we said, how much time are we billing to the customer? And there's a study out there, the most efficient home service companies like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, they're billing 50% of the time, because you've got drive time, warehouse time, filling out paperwork time. They're sitting in their truck a lot. So a very efficient AC company is billing out at 50% of the time. So it's like so all of a sudden they're looking at, if they're making $50 an hour, we're charging $300 an hour. So they're like, that's a huge gap. Well, okay, we're charging $300 an hour, but we're only billing for half of your time. So now the differential is $150, right? So $150 to $50. So let's take how much your truck costs and how many billable hours, again, not hours on the road, or how many billable hours is that truck good for? How many billable hours is the insurance and everything? And we came out of that. We were all surprised. Not only did the employees say, "Holy crap, we need to charge more," but the management team came out and said, "We're undercharging."
Yeah.
And everybody, including the employees. And when the employees have that knowledge, and sometimes we like to keep them in the dark because we're afraid to let them know what we're making and that sort of thing. But trust me, they think we're making more than we are.
Yeah.
Right. If you just leave it up to chance, they have no business training, they've never owned their business, 100% of the time they will think you're making more money than you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell them exactly what you're making, but make sure they understand all the expenses to run a business and what you're paying them versus what you're actually billing the customer for, and then all those ancillary things. If you can make them understand that and give them that confidence, it makes it a lot easier to ask for that money, rather than thinking, well, shit, I'm making $50 an hour and the company's charging $300 an hour flat rate, so they're rolling in it.
Yeah. No, it's so key to be transparent. And we started actually, like with our sales team, we started doing job costing, because the sales reps, right, they're bidding these jobs. They're the first person to go out there, and they're the first ones to say, "Oh yeah, we can discount it. That doesn't take that long," right? They're the first ones, but they have no idea when you're talking about the insurance. And this stuff isn't getting any cheaper, as you guys know.
No, it's not.
Right? Like inflation and everything. I mean, fuel is going up, right? It's crazy. Some of the $5,000 fuel bills you're getting a month. And so this stuff all goes over. And I stress this a lot to, a lot of my older clients and stuff like that, is like, when something goes up, like SH, right? Your direct, chemical, if you will, that's going to go directly into my price sheet, right? It's a pass through, because now if that goes up, guess what? Any of your chemicals go up, that's hitting you as a company, your bottom line, and then you're not making what you want. So we have to make sure at the end of the day that we are profitable. I always say, it doesn't say .org at the end of our websites, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We gotta do a profit, because then you can pay your guys better, right? You can pay your team better, and you're going to grow. And the cool thing is, it's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Because I know, I was first starting, I was scared. I was like, "Oh, you're on Social Security? No worries. We'll do three payments of $200."
Yeah.
You ain't going to grow a business like that.
No.
So,
and sometimes people that don't have a lot of money, they want to feel good about themselves and what they're doing. And just because you charge more doesn't mean you're ripping them off. They can't have everything they want in life, but there's some things they can have, and they can be proud of and they will find things to be proud of. And if you can do a great job in their house, and they can drive in that driveway and feel good, and they might feel good that they stretched to pay for it. It's like, man, that looks, and it might look that much better because they paid more. You're going to do a better job, but don't project that on them and take that away from them. I mean, people with all types of income will pay what you need to. And
that's right.
The other thing too, when people are looking at profit, they look at the profit, like after paying all their bills and their employees, and what can I live on? But they also need to look at growing their business, and that's an expense. So your customers pay for everything. You don't pay for your customers pay for everything. So all of your expenses and your growth. And if you've got to factor that in, so they need to pay for that next truck, and the wrap and the skid and, everything else on it. And so, they're not only paying all today's expenses and you and your family to live, but they're paying for the growth of your company. And, if you don't put that in there, you're not going to grow. And, and that's fine if you don't want to grow, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, the goal though, right? You want to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying is what they say.
You can get stagnant for a little while and be okay, but eventually, you have to grow.
Yeah, you do. So I want to touch real quick because we got a couple minutes left here. So, we're talking about the sales team, right? We talked about job costing. So what did that look like, for you in the sales field, like growing, talking to sales professionals? What did that look like for you? So we got, small companies here to large companies on tonight. And so I want to talk a little bit about those sales teams and what you found to be, good practices, I guess you'd say, with growing a sales team or even just jumping into a sales team.
Yeah, one of the things I learned one of the first things I learned selling copiers was a great way to cut your teeth as a young person learning sales. I mean, they invested heavily in training, but one of the things that the phrases I learned was buyers are liars.
Yes,
and is not to believe everything your customer's telling you, and they have motives too, and they're trying to beat you down. So, and it goes back to getting them. You got to get them out of the field every, at least once a year.
Yeah.
And get their head right, because no matter how good you are, you get beat up. So, it's like a boxing match, you got a ding, 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 and they go to the corner and get their, cuts stop from bleeding and get them a drink of water and stuff like that. That's what sales is. And, you got to get that time out and get their head right and share success stories. And, it's amazing how many people out here, yourself being the prime example, willing to share the secret of their success and what they do. And you just have, if it just seek it out, talk to people. People are willing to help. People don't realize that, business owners who have been through that, they're willing. I know guys that are willing to help. I'm sure, and you're one of them too. They will help their competitors in their own territory.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Nobody's ever going to not have competitors. If you can help the competitors in your market raise their game, you're always going to have competitors. But if you can help your competitors raise their game and their bar, you're all going to rise. And then you won't have, the guy that's like so much cheaper. And so, have lunch with your competitor, encourage them, hey, I'm not trying to just talk you into charging more, you just got to understand that your family deserves this. And, what are your goals? But, I think the training is key, and it's books, it's videos, it's getting off site to train. You got to, the stuff in the morning on the way to work is great for reinforcement stuff, but you got to pull them out of the field for a day or two.
Yep.
Twice a year at least, I think.
Yep. I agree with that. No, I'm with you, man, because competition is good. Like, I want competition and I want my competition to rise up, right? Because that's going to make us better. We're paving the way. It's like, I want to reinvent. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to create new things, right? And you learn by customers, you learn by the market. And if you're not paying attention to your numbers and you're not paying attention to what your guys are saying in training, right? Or going to outside training. I've gone to training, not even in our industry before, you know what I mean? To like get a bigger picture is like, don't just be stuck in the norm, rise up, meet your competition, because we have competitors that are like, yeah, I'm busy with residential, but Precision can do the large stuff or whatever it may be. And so back in the day, they're like giving us big commercial jobs. And I'm like, heck yeah, that's the way we do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what it's all about, and building that camaraderie. Because if you get a big project or you need help, guess what? That guy is going to be there for you to help you out.
Yeah.
Just leveling
And
it
we
up.
don't it never works trashing your competitors, even with the customers. All you just build yourself up. And, if somebody comes in at half your price, just say, Mrs. Jones, I'm not going to speak that poorly about my competition. I can't tell you what corners they're going to cut in order to give you that price. I can just tell you what I do, and I'm not getting rich off it. I'm making a living. I'm feeding my family. I can't tell you how that person's doing that. Frankly, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But and then let them think, okay, how is this person doing that for half the price?
Yeah. Yeah, that goes right back to the scripts, you know what I mean, with how you set the stage, because we have a buyer's guide that we send out, right? And the buyer's guide sets the stage for, okay, these are the things you need to be asking that contractor. And so when we check all the boxes and then they're like, all right, yeah, he's coming in the same price, but he's not checking all the boxes, then you're just setting the stage for the homeowner. You want the homeowner to make the educated decision on why you are the best and not say at the end of the cleaning, well, I paid too much, or you were here for 2 hours. Why did you charge me $2,000? Well, it's because our knowledge, right? And it's you, but they'll know that if you've done the presentation correctly.
You want to be the one to educate them.
Yes.
And it's hard to uneducate somebody. They say it's easier to fool somebody than to convince them they've been fooled. Once somebody is educated, then it's very hard to sway them one way or the other. That's what's wrong with the world of politics today. Is once you've been educated one way, it's just really hard to tell somebody anything different.
That's right.
So you want to be the first and the best one to educate them.
Yes, that's exactly right. I always like being I don't know, I like being the first guy at the quote too. Because I'm the one, if they come after, they're like, crap, I know who's been here.
Yeah. It allows you to. Some people say I want to come in last because then those are the price guys. I want to come in last because I want to close them. And if you go in first, you can set the stage. If you do it right, they'll cancel the other appointments.
Yep.
One of my favorite stories is Jim McDonough. When he first signed up with the seal, he called me all excited on a Monday morning. He said, I didn't know that you trained. This is back before he had integrated CRM. He said, I didn't know you trained the office how to send those seal mails. And I didn't know they started sending them. He said, I just went on my first call. He said, the lady opened the door and he said, she was so friendly. And he said, I thought she was just super friendly. He said, so I'm explaining to her the cleaning process. And she interrupted me and said, when can you do it? He said, in 20 years, I hadn't had somebody say, when can you do it before I had given him a price. Yeah. So she basically told him, she said, when I got that seal mail with your badge and proof of background, I printed it out. I showed it to my husband. She said, you had the job before you ever got here. We didn't even call anybody else.
Nice.
So, that's obviously self-serving. That's a seal story, but it could be anything, any differentiator, if you don't ask questions, you don't know what's important to that client. But if you can learn what's important to that client and push that button, they will cancel appointments with your competitors. They will not bother calling competitors. So answer your phone, get out there as quickly and be the one to educate them and give them the checklist, before somebody else does.
That's it. Yeah. So I would say, you know what I mean, to land this plane here is like, focus on your sales. When you go and you're at a customer, pay attention to their buying signs, and learn from everyone. And if you didn't get it, ask them. Just ask the simple question of, why didn't you go with me today? And then would you buy from yourself? Asking yourself the hard questions. Every time I did a quote, man, I'd leave there and I'd sit at the house and I'll say, okay, did I do everything I was supposed to do? Did I upserve that customer? And so, just keep doing that. You'll keep getting better and sharpening, just like we did, in sales. And that's what it's all about, learning from the customer and then focusing on the wins and just keep doing that.
I agree.
Good deal, man. Well, where are you at, by the way?
I'm in the Keys right now on a boat.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah. So today was the opening of grouper season down here, and the mahi, it's a good time for mahi fishing, and there's still some sailfish around. So.
Nice.
I'm working during the week, but I'm here on the weekends. We're here for a month, so I work all. I got Starlink, so I can work from anywhere, and I'll work all week and then play hard on the weekends.
Bam. Hey, that's how we do it.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, Ed. So to end it, I always ask everybody at the last end of the thing, what is one thing that you can give to the audience that, would help them out in the next week or so?
Raise your prices.
Bam. Yes.
I mean, it's tough times. People understand that, and don't be 10% more than your competition. Be 50% more than your competition, and sell it right, and be proud of it. And I mean, it's just that mindset.
Yeah. It is. It was crazy when I started like going up 20%, 30%, 40%. And, people are still they're not saying anything. I'm like, what? Because you don't know. We don't know what the market will bear unless you start doing it. Right.
Yeah.
I'd love to do less work for more money, and you can do it better. You can, serve your team at a higher level. There's so much you can do.
Yeah. Especially if you're booked out, raise your prices.
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff.
And just do whatever you can to sell. That's the number one deficiency that I see in this, especially this industry. The exterior cleaning is everyone's got the best of everything except sales skills.
Yeah.
They got the best truck. They got the best skid. They got the best chemicals. They got the best trained guys. And the sales skills is the number one lacking. That's why I was like, when you said, what could they do this week? I'm like, I had to think of something they could do this week.
Yeah.
Really, you're not going to do it in a week. You got to hone those skills and start investing now.
Yeah.
In those sales skills. And if it's not part of your nature and you can't do it, you go do the cleaning and hire a salesperson. And while you clean, don't limit your company on your poor sales skills.
That's right. Hire for your weaknesses, right?
Yep.
That's it. Awesome, dude. Well, Ed, I really appreciate you being on, brother. That was gold stuff right there.
I appreciate it always.
Where can people check you out, man? Look at the seal.
The website's theseal.com.
Nice.
And there's a link there to get a demo, and basically it'll show you a calendar of available slots, and it only takes about 15 minutes to go over the value proposition. And we do a good job of not just selling the seal, but a lot of the stuff we talked about, we weave that into our presentation. But it's and we have about 700 customers all over the country. Some of them pay a lot of money for this. I got a little bit of a soft spot for the industry. We started, when we were young, so we offer special pricing to the industry, and it's really a no-brainer for the cleaning industry. And we talk about not charging enough. I don't charge enough to the exterior cleaning business, but I've got other customers that are supporting that.
Yeah.
But we like spending time with our customers. We like solving their problems, and I'm always willing to have this conversation with a client or a prospect too.
I know that, man. I've had calls with you over the years, and you're always willing to, whatever it is, you're like, hey man, let's have this conversation. Or we got a guy that something popped up. I'm like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
So good stuff, man. Well, thank you again, Ed, for being on Community with Closers. Good stuff tonight, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, Pat. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll have to have you back for sure. And, everybody tuning in, make sure you check out theseal.com, Ed Marchiselli right here. And we'll see you next week, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time right here, Spotify, YouTube. You got it.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.